But now life and this program go on. And for nearly 200 years, the wild bush horses have been roaming the Australian Alps around the Snowy River up by Kosciuszko's side. They've become part of Australian folklore, painted as equine heroes like the colt from Old Regret or the silver brumbie. Now, the wild horse population has reached unsustainable levels, according to national park authorities, and may lead to the return of brumbie mustering and to the debates that go with it. Adrian Francis reports.
There's nothing quite like being able to see wild brumbies in the wild. It's an absolute thrill. And they're so strongly linked into our heritage.
We don't believe that the science supports the need to take out horses at this stage.
Our obligations are that we've got to protect the native flora and fauna, so our goal at the moment is really trying to manage the impact we're seeing from the horses and reduce the number.
This is one of the tricks used to remove wild horses from Kosciuszko National Park in southern New South Wales. For many years, the vast majority of brumbies caught in these yards have been destined for pet meat. The Park Service says each year around 70,000 domestic horses are sent to Australian abattoirs, which means there's a limited market for additional wild and untrained horses. But the Parks and Wildlife Service says it is increasingly finding new homes for the caught brumbies.
Come to here, start them with the molasses here because they've already been introduced to molasses, feed. Hopefully more horses coming in behind these.
This trapyard has been set up on Long Plain. The Frost Hollow is naturally bereft of trees and is located near the former mining town of Kyandra. It's thought horses arrived here with settlers in the 1830s.
They were used for access into this part of the country and certainly used for grazing during the grazing era. And when that was phased out in late 60s, early 70s, there was some remnants of those populations remained behind in the park. The numbers have escalated and basically a lot of the mares that are in the park are foaling on a regular basis, and some of the research we've looked at is saying that 70 to 90% of those foals are surviving.
Kosciuszko is one of the largest conservation reserves in the nation, stretching from the ACT border to Victoria.
The population has increased at almost a maximum rate of 20% per annum. I think the estimates are pretty spot on, if possibly underestimated in the northern end of the park.
Steve Horsley has been heading up Kosciuszko's horse management program for over a decade.
In Kosciuszko now we're probably getting close to 5,000 horses in the park. They're found in probably about a third of the park. So we've got the northern end of Kosciuszko, which is where we are today. That's one area where there are quite a few horses, and also in the lower snowy Biadbo dead horse gap in the southern end of the park near the Victorian borders.
A group representing recreational park users strongly disagrees with parks population assessment and management.
We're a group of people that spend a lot of time in the park. We ride and we watch and we look, and we just don't see as many horses as we used to.
Irrespective of the debate over brumbie numbers, the Park Service says the wild horses are sharing the landscape with native species, including the critically endangered corroboree frog and threatened broad-toothed rat. Steve Horsley says the alpine environment is extremely sensitive.
Well, we've just travelled down Long Plain Road and we saw a group of wild horses near this site, and we followed them down, and they actually came down across the plain and across the stream that's in front of us now.
He says eroded rivers, streams and quagmires are unlikely to recover unless horse numbers are reduced.
There's two things that are happening here. There's quite a bit of grazing happening right on the stream bank, and as they're crossing the stream themselves, they're actually pugging the edge of the stream. You can see very high turbid coloured water.
But the Snowy Mountains Bush Users Group disagrees.
They move on, they're nomadic. They roam around. They don't stay in one area for a long time, and as a result, the grass regenerates. Go back and have a look in 6 months' time when the horses have moved on, and you won't find any impact at all.
Roaming brumbies are a danger on roads. Over the last 5 years, the Park Service says there have been more than 20 collisions between brumbies and vehicles along the Snowy Mountains Highway. That's why Long Plain, adjacent to the highway, is the target of brumby removal in winter.
A little stale on this side, and he's only young, and he's sort of 3-year-old. He obviously hasn't got his own mob.
Over the last 8 years, park rangers like GLEN MORAN have lured up to 1,000 brumbies to these portable trap yards. But they've also faced opposition and interference, with brumbies secretly released from these overnight by people who oppose the program.
So it's just up and then through this gate here. If you want to swing around, and hopefully, it all sounds easy, but into our forcing yard here and onto the trailers. This baiting here will go.
The Parks and Wildlife Service says it developed this technique in association with the RSPCA and other wild horse stakeholders. It is described as a passive way to catch and remove brumbies. When they won't load, GLEN MORAN uses a rustling tarpaulin to force them onto the trailer. Some stakeholders hold grave concerns for the welfare of trapped brumbies.
There is no good way to trap or to collect up a wild horse. Trapping is inevitably going to put more than one group of horses together in a very small space, and they will fight, and as a result they will damage each other.
The trapping of the horses is probably the easy side of it. It's more the issue about the social, cultural values of the horse, even the economics of what we're doing, how much that's costing us. So, like this year we will spend something like $300,000 on horse management.
The service is encouraging experienced horse riders to form professional brumby rehoming groups, like this one in Victoria.
We've never had one that hasn't been able to be transformed. We've had horses like VBA Belle, who came out of the wild as a 10-year-old mare. So she would have had many foals by that point and was a very, very much established as a wild horse.
Within a year of retraining, this reformed Kosciuszko Brumby was winning ribbons at royal shows, thanks to the work of the Victorian Brumby Association.
It's really humbling seeing any of these wild horses transform from the total fear that they come in displaying to having the trust in their handlers to tackle things like walking over bridges or being ridden or anything like that. It's just a wonderful thing to see.
But like everything associated with horses, the transformation isn't cheap.
We take anything that comes out of the parks, so we may end up with weanling foals that are quite quick to retrain and find homes for, and we might end up with 10 or 12-year-old stallions, which are slower. So it might cost us anywhere between about $500 and $700 per horse. Some of them are more than that, though.
The few brumby rehoming charities and organisations could soon be faced with increased supply. The New South Wales Parks and Wildlife Service is preparing to increase their brumby removal program.
We've been having some discussions with local horse riders about whether we can get them involved with mustering programs as well. And what we'd like to be looking at, coming into next summer is possibly trialling mustering.
They're not considering a return to brumby roping or running, but they are planning to trial helicopters.
Mainly looking at setting up large yards and then either using helicopter to assist and then people on horseback then to drive a mob of horses into that trap site.
Helicopter mustering, such as they do in America, is quite traumatic for the horses, and there's been some pretty bad horror stories. Moving wild horses around at speed into yards, you can get some really disastrous, catastrophic injuries.
The New South Wales Parks and Wildlife Service will review the Kosciuszko Horse Management Plan in 2 years.
Under the National Parks and Wildlife Act, our legal obligation is to protect what's in the park, so we've got no option. We can't back off managing the horse numbers, so it's a matter of how many horses we take out.
And that's a really sad thing. They're such a wonderful horse that just lends themselves perfectly to being domestic horses and riding horses. It's a terrible shame to see more coming out of the park than can be rehomed.